Alright, so test review. You'll have a question where you have to classify triangles. So remember that you could have scalene, isosceles, equilateral. So scalene, no sides are congruent. Isosceles, two sides congruent. And equilateral, all sides congruent. And then we'll have acute. Obtuse. Right. And equiangular. So an acute triangle will have all acute angles. Obtuse will only have one obtuse angle. A right will have one right angle. And equiangular will have all congruent. Okay, so you'll have one of those. You'll have 3 triangle sum questions. So all angles add up to 180 degrees. So different varieties of questions that deal with the fact that they add up to 180. So you may need to write an equation if they have x's involved. If they don't, then you can just add up with the 2 that you have and the other and subtract from 180. Okay, so there's 3 of those. You'll have one question that deals with exterior angle theorem. So that one is like angle 1 plus angle 2 equals x. So you'll probably need to write an equation and solve it. Just make sure that you answer the question, because if it says like what is angle, this, what's the exterior angle, it may not be, you get x equals 10, you might need to plug in 10. So just make sure you pay attention to the directions on that one. Okay, you'll have an equilateral triangle question. So just remember that, all sides are congruent, and kind of by default, all angles are congruent, and therefore they are 60 degrees. So you'll need to excuse me, you'll need to know that. So you'll have one question that so let's say you had a question like this. And it wants you to solve for x. Well, it'll tell you, like, so let's say it said that this and this and this and this were congruent. Well, I can conclude that this angle in the middle and this angle in the middle are congruent by side angle side. And when the 2 triangles are congruent, then everything is congruent. All the angles are congruent and all the sides are congruent. So after I know that the triangles are congruent, then all their little parts are congruent also. So I can say that x plus 4 equals 60, and I can solve it. And so like x equals 56. So you'll have one problem where, like this one is like a side angle side problem, and you'll have another one where it's angle side angle. And you need to kind of look at it and go, oh, these are congruent because, and then understand all the parts match up and they'll be congruent. All the sides will have the same length, all the angles will have the same measure. Okay, so you'll have to secondarily do the problem after you kind of figure out, yeah, these are congruent. Okay, you'll have a question, and it's hard to like really do a diagram of this one, but it'll say what statements are true in the diagram. So it'll give you a diagram, and it'll say, this is congruent to this. Is that true in the diagram? This is congruent to that. Is that true in the diagram? This triangle is congruent to that triangle. Is that true? Okay, so it says statements. That means there'll be more than one. Okay, and then you'll have one that'll say name two congruent triangles in a diagram. Okay, and I will tell you there is more than one answer. So list all of them that apply. All right. Then you're going to have 5 proofs. Okay, and they're going to be where you're going to do the proofs like on a separate sheet of paper, and then you're going to fill in just the reasons in order. So there'll be blanks for you to type in your answer. Okay, so just remember that the process is you're supposed to write the given information down. So here's a hint. The first reason you should type on all 5 of those proofs is given. If you missed that one, I don't know what to tell you. So the next thing you're supposed to do is make conclusions from the given. I'm going to go over samples of those in just a minute. Then you're supposed to make conclusions from the picture. And so remember, this is where we're going to do reflexive property or vertical angles congruent. And after you've done all those, you should be able to say this triangle is congruent to this triangle. And then your reasons for your proof: side angle side, side side side, hypotenuse leg, angle side angle, or angle angle side. So the very last reason should be one of those 5 things. Okay, so the make conclusions from the given, this second part here, you'll be able to write the given, and then there's nothing to do conclusion wise, so you go straight to reflexive or vertical angles, and then you'll be at the proof part. So one of the things that could be told is midpoint. So if you had if it said that B is a midpoint, then your conclusion is AB is congruent to BC. And so you would have said a side of a triangle is congruent at that point. Okay? If you're told that something is parallel, you're going to need to say that alternate interior angles are congruent. So you're going to need to find alternate interior angles within the picture, and then you'll write, this is congruent to this, and then your reason's going to be alternate interior angles are congruent. Okay, and then perpendicular. So remember that if something's perpendicular, the first thing you're going to say is that you have right angles. You identify in the picture what's perpendicular, and then you'll say this angle and this angle are right angles. Okay, and then that's just the definition of perpendicular. Okay, and then you could say one of two things next. You could say, because you have right angles, you could say that right angles are congruent if I want to write this. If, and usually that works this way, if the hypotenuse is not congruent, or if angles are congruent. So if the hypotenuse is not congruent, you may use right angles are congruent, or if you have other angles congruent, because the other option is to say that you have right triangles. And if you're using right triangles, typically the hypotenuse is going to be congruent. But that means you're going to be using HL for a reason at the end. And if you're using HL, you won't have any angles congruent in the problem. Okay? So I will tell you that there is one problem where you are going to have right angles and you're going to say that they are congruent. And then there's another problem where you're going to have right angles and you're going to use hypotenuse leg. So kind of really pause for a minute on those ones. Okay? All right, so those are going to be the only three things that you're going to need to make a conclusion from the given. I think there's two problems that actually have midpoint. There's one of them, honestly, where there's no conclusion from the given. So you don't have to even do. Okay, so it goes pretty quickly on that one. All right, so you'll get points for each reason that you give correctly. And yes, the order does matter in certain situations. In some it doesn't. So it might mark stuff wrong on the test. And I will have to go back through individually and look at your answers to see if I need to change your score. And it'll only change for the positive. It won't go down. Okay? All right, so kind of maybe go through the chapter. I think looking at the examples where they do proofs is a really good idea to help study like that part of it. Okay? All right, have a great rest of your day and evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for the test.